Hey, today I'm going to try and explain a bit more about gender identities and how they relate to people and the pronouns that you should use and all that kind of malarkey. I'll try and use some little picture things as I go along, but I'm not great with this whole technology thing, so this is quite new. So please just bear with me. Okay, the first thing is the gender isn't just black and white. It's not as simple as being a boy or a girl. Obviously, there's a difference between sex and gender. So sex is what you are biologically, what's between your legs and on your chest is how I like to think about it. And gender is more in your mind, so what you feel you are, how you like to view yourself, that kind of stuff. Um, First, I'll whiz through some terminology really quickly. So, cisgender is the majority of the population. It's where your biological sex matches your gender. If you're transgender, it means that your biological sex does not match your gender. That's the easiest way to think about it. And when they don't match, it doesn't always mean that they're opposites, but it can mean that you're non-binary, for example. Non-binary is a term that people use to describe themselves when they feel that they're not either male or female. They don't definitely fit into one of those categories, so they're not part of the binary terms that gender that society uses to describe gender. The way I try and think about gender, because it can be very confusing, is a big long scale. So at one end you have males, and this is female to male transition and cis males. And at the other end you have females, so this is male to female transitions and cis females. Having slap in the middle, I like to whack agenders. Now, agenders are people who feel that they don't fit into one or the other. They don't feel like they have any gender at all. So they're the neutral point in the middle. That's how I like to think. So that's they're in the middle. Next, I like to put a squiggly line over the top of my gendery thing, my gender spectrum, and this to me represents the people who identify as gender fluid, gender queer, gender fucked is sometimes used, queer gender. Basically, there are a lot more terms than that, and it means that you're not just male or female, but you can float between the two. So you might have a male day or a female day. You might have days when you're in the middle and you have a little bit of both, but yeah, you float like a wiggly line up and down the spectrum. Then I come off the scale and third gender goes next for me. Third gender is people who believe that they're not male or female. They believe that they have a set gender that they are every day. But it's not one that society has labelled as a male or female. So it's something completely separate. Then bigender people are ones that I struggle fitting on my little diagram thing. Ruins it. No. But no. Bigender means that you are two or more genders at once, and this can either be like a 50-50 split, so you're half one gender, half the other gender. One can be more dominant than the other, but it doesn't mean that you're always the same two genders. It just means you are two at once. So, for example, you could one day be male and female, and the next day you could be agender and gender fluid, and that would also be a compatible mix for you. So that's bigender in a nutshell. I will put some definition links at the end of this video. So if you want to go back through and check them out and have a look at me, probably better definitions than what I can present, then that the option is there and it's up to you. The next thing is a bit about pronouns and titles. So obviously with females we're used to she, her, miss, Mrs, she's going over there, that kind of stuff. And obviously with males we're used to he did this and this is his hat and Mr. so and so. Martha used to be used, it's not quite so much anymore, but you know. And then the ones that you're probably not as familiar with is gender neutral pronouns. Now, I have a lot of debate with varying people about which is the best ones to use, but it is completely down to the individual about what they prefer. Some people use pronouns like they and them, so they are over there, them is doing this, that kind of stuff. So I find that confusing sometimes because you can think about you're referring to multiple people, which is not what you're doing. So I don't know. But some other subjective pronouns that you're probably not familiar with are ones like the. So that can be spelled Z-E-E or Z-I-E. So that's what Z said, or that's what Zim said. Zim is another one. Or C, S-I-E. Then with possessive pronouns, so where you would normally say that is his hat or that is her hat, you would say that is his hat, so H-A-R, or Zia, Z-I-R. I also think you can use Sia, so S-I-R. So that's some gender neutral pronouns for you there. And titles, which Australians are actually allowed to put on their passport now, their gender neutral, gender variant, all that kind of stuff, is X, just X or XE. Some people use XM. So yeah, again, it depends entirely on the non-binary person as to what they prefer. There are so many options out there because there's not kind of a set in stone thing that's recognised by governments and leaders and people. Loads of people use different things. So if you know someone that's non-binary, just ask them what their preferred pronouns is. They're probably not going to get angry with you. They'd rather you use the correct pronouns than use the wrong ones, because that won't make them feel great and stuff. So, but remember that when we refer with pronouns, we refer to gender and not biological sex. So if someone is a female to male transition, they are male. They are he, him, his, that kind of stuff. And the same the other way around. So if they're going from male to female, they are now she's, hers, she. I don't know. It's odd when you're doing this. You forget all kinds of pronouns. But yeah, words and things that are offensive. The word tranny is an offensive word. It's not one that you should really use. You shouldn't tell people that their identity doesn't exist. They don't generally tend to like that. That is a weird thing to do. Hang on, you don't exist. Well, actually, yes, I do, and I'm right here. So, don't tell them that their identity doesn't exist, because it does. It's also not a phase, okay? It's not a phase. People seem to toss this around like it's nothing. You're going through a phase, you're a teenager. So you're just a teenager, or it's not a phase. There are so many trans people who are older and stuff, and they're not going through a phase. That's the way they are. That's just the way people are. Also, other things with trans people, I've heard people going, "Are you a real boy or a real girl?" And I'm just like, yeah, of course they're a boy or girl. What defines a boy or a girl, or a man or a woman? And what defines that as a gender thing? You have to do this and you have to do that. And then no, it's just, there's no such thing as a real boy. And you don't get asked if you're a real boy normally. So, I mean, someone hands over your ID and you're like, hey, you're actually a real boy. And it's just like, yes, that's just not a thing that, no, that's incorrect. Also, another thing is, I've heard a lot of people called attention seekers when they identify as non-binary and come out, or they identify as trans and come out, and that's not the case at all. That's just who they are. That's just who they are as people. That's as simple as that. And another thing is kind of stuff, ooh, you really do look like a boy today, or you really do look like a girl. I was really convinced. And it's like, that's not what you want to hear. That's not what someone wants to hear. It's not like me going, oh, well, you do look like a girl today, to someone who was cis female. It's like, sometimes, you know, if you just use the correct pronouns that people want, then you don't have to tell them that they look like a real boy or a real girl. Because they are real boys and real girls at the end of the day. Another thing is that gender identity is kind of here in a circle, and sexual identity, sexual preferences is here. So they're not really any correlated link at all. So yeah, don't assume that because someone's trans that they are gay, because the chances are they may or may not be gay. They may be bi or something completely different. So don't assume. And yeah, if you don't understand anything, just ask. Seriously, just ask. Because there is nothing wrong with being confused about it. Because we're not well educated on these kind of things in schools or colleges or God knows what else, and we probably should be. But if you're confused, I'm sure someone would rather you just ask them. If you ask them in a correct way, so for example, hi, what are your preferred pronouns? Or hi, What's your preferred name? Also, don't ask people what their real name is, because if someone refers to themselves as a name that's either neutral or the opposite gender, that is their real name right then. If you want to know what their birth name is, then that's a completely different question. And some people won't want to tell you because they don't want to be associated with that identity anymore, and that's absolutely fine. But it's not their real name because some people might have officially changed their name. So basically, with this video, I'm trying to educate people more on what gender identity is, because I believe that people, because they don't understand something, they're more likely to not be afraid of it, but be a bit kind of, I don't know about this towards it. So yeah, that's why I made this video. Transphobia of any kind is never acceptable. The same as homophobia or racism. It's just not acceptable. It's picking flaws in people or disliking them because of because of who they are. That would make more sense. So don't do it. Simple as that. Really cool, right? Yeah. Awkward ending.